computer, and I'm going to make you the host.
Wow.
So, Rafa, you're the host now.
Okay. Perfect.
And you could you could mute you'll need to, could you mute everyone, please?
Okay.
Because you're the host, you'll need to do that. I can't do it.
Okay. Oh, yes, I have it here. All right. Perfect. So, yeah, I will admit everybody as they are coming. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So I want to start by showing you this picture.
Okay.
If you can see this. This is, my son spent a year working at a winery in the Rhone Valley called Pierre Gaillard. They make amazing wines in Hermitage.
Yes.
And he and my niece, who lives in Nice, and her husband drove across the border into Spain to a restaurant in the Pyrenees with a group of 12. I thought it was going to be the three of them. And so I told him to pick up the check. And it turned out to be 12 people. And he still picked up the check. But he asked me what kind of wine to order. I said, well, the house wine will be lovely. Just order that. And then they served it and he tasted. He's 19 years old. He tasted the wine and said it. He called me on the phone. He's on the phone from a restaurant in the Pyrenees calling me in the United States saying, Dad, this wine is horrible. We can't drink it. What should I do? And I said, read me the wine list. So that's him reading me the wine list. And the first wine was La Rioja Alta Viña Ardanza. And I said, just order that.
Okay.
And everybody will be thrilled. So that's about 16 years ago. He's 35 now, he's a lawyer. But it's kind of scary when your 19-year-old son is knowledgeable enough about wine to reject the wine at a nice restaurant in Spain. But he did, but as a result, they drank La Rioja Alta Viña Ardanza that night.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Good choice, eh? Good choice.
Well, it was easy because it was the first he started reading the wine list, and the first wine he came to was that. So that made it simple because I knew everybody would be thrilled.
Very well.
So, Rafael, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and thank you everyone for joining us too. As I said a couple of minutes ago, I'm very excited about this tasting because I personally just love these wines. I have for decades.
Okay. Thank you very much. What are the things?
Rafael, you are the North American manager for La Rioja Alta. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. I've been with La Rioja Alta since 2004, so it's going to be 17 years now. Okay, and yes, and I've been taking care of all the American continent. That's correct.
So I'm just going to turn it over to you, and I think you say you have a short presentation to share, and then we can just chat. We can just chat about the wines, and if anyone has any questions, they can use the chat feature to ask those, so we're not talking over each other. And so thank you.
Definitely. Okay, so I'm gonna show you now a short, a very short. Okay, it's no longer all because I didn't want to extend myself too much in with this. Okay, so that is okay. Here is all right. Well, that is in this first picture. Okay, that is the winery as it is today, and that is how it was in 1890. Okay, that is the same building, exactly the same building. This here is this here. All right. So it was in
130 years old.
130 years old, that's correct. So we were founded in the 19th century. We've been growing and kept on growing in the 20th century. And we are extremely passionate for the 21st century. Okay, that the things, I believe that the things are getting better and better and better. Okay, and as we go along, wines, we keep on perfectionating the wines. Right. We were born in 1890. Okay, that was 5 Riojan and Basque families they joined around the station neighborhood, okay, to found La Rioja Alta S.A. It was the company La Rioja Alta S.A. that the first president was a woman, was Doña Saturnina, Miss Saturnina Garcia, okay? And our first winemaker was a French gentleman called Monsieur Vigier, Alphonse Vigier. That was our first winemaker.
Rafa, if I could interrupt just a moment.
Yes.
I would encourage everyone to go on and pour themselves a glass of the Viña Alberdi to be enjoying while we're getting started here.
Okay, let me get it myself too. Here it is. All right. So, okay, besides La Rioja Alta, which is the winery that gives name to our group, okay, we have another three wineries, okay? Another one in Rioja, which is called Torre de Oña, where we make a little bit more modern wines. Also, we have another one in Aster, which is Ribera del Duero. And then we have another one in Galicia, here in the northwest of Spain, which is called Lagar de Cervera. And then we do two wines over there, which is, both of them, they are Albariños. So we have that traditionality with La Rioja Alta, and then we have those other modern wineries around the country in the best DOs. Okay, well, you know, we like to age a lot the wines, okay? So we have it for a long time also in barrels, and then we let them to stay in the bottle for also several more years. So the wines rounds, and when we release the wines, means that those wines are ready to be drunk. Okay, so you don't have to keep it any longer. You can keep them, but you don't need to keep them. Okay, you can drink those wines as soon as you get them in the store or in the restaurant. So that is what we do, and so we keep them from you, the wines. We keep them when they are ready. We put in the market and we release them. So we don't have, you know, exact dates or exact months that we release the wines. No, it could be, depends. That is a knowledgeable decision. And as soon as the wine is ready, we release them. Always that they have fulfilled the minimums. Okay, that they, for example, in this case, for Viña Alberdi, has to be at least in oak, okay? And another 2 in the barrel. All right. And then our main variety is Tempranillo, okay, but also we cultivate and other varieties, minor varieties, Graciano, Garnacha, and Masuelo, which they are really very important for other wines. And for example, for Viñardanza that we use the Garnacha, or for the Gran Reservas that we use the Graciano and the Masuelo. Okay. And we like to highlight, okay, that we are very aware of the environment. Okay, so we don't use any aggressive treatments in with organic fertilizers or any other type. Okay, we have a very large research and development projects just to try to keep on reducing the use of a fertilizer or insecticides. This here is one of the corridors underground in La Rioja Alta that, as you see, all the walls are barrels, okay? And those we have about 8 million, at any single time we have about 8 million barrels and about 30,000 barrels, okay? So in that way, if we stop producing wine today, we would be able to supply the market for the next 9 years without any interruption. Okay, so that is the size, the magnitude that they has that winery. Okay, some of you have seen it. You've seen of the barrels over there, and it's quite impressive. Okay. Okay, so as I said before in a petit comité, before I said that we are a little bit tradition and innovation. Okay. By tradition, that would be, you know, we will produce very elegant, sophisticated, complex wines, okay, smoothness with long life, long aging, all right? And in the part of the innovation, since the 2001 vintages, we have a more color intensity, more freshness, more fruit, okay, and the tannins are rounded now, okay? What happens? In the past, many years ago, our wines tended to be a little bit tired, a little bit oxidized, okay? That was what how the wines were made in Rioja in years ago, okay? So we saw that our clientele was taking other paths. So what we did is give a little bit without losing the traditionality, without losing that elegance, sophistication, complexity. We gave them to the wines a little bit more lightness, more fruit, more, okay? And then right now you have a very young wines, very old young wines, okay, with a long agings, and they are very fresh, okay? And they are very, very refreshing, okay? Without losing all the characteristics of the tradition. Okay, so tradition plus innovation is balance. Okay, you will see that our wines are extremely balanced. All right. So those are the wines that we are going to taste tonight. We have the Viña Verde 2015 and the Viña Danza 2012 and the Gran Reserva 904 2011. Okay. So as soon as you want,
Rafa, the 904 we are tasting is the 2009.
Ah, the 2009. Oh, yes. I'm sorry about that. I'm going to be tasting the 2011. I'm sorry about that. So okay. Sorry. Okay. Okay. Yeah, because, yeah, I'm sorry about that. So sorry.
You got the shitty stuff.
So, well, so in fact, I had no way to get right now the 2009, by the way, but it was my mistake. I should have advise you that I was not able to have it, but I can. Well, the characteristics and everything in the overall of the wine are very similar. And the thing is that yeah, well, there is a little bit of differences between
Sorry, Rafa, it's really not an issue at all, and Boris and Belen can describe, since they're our Rioja experts here, they can describe the 2009 to you.
Okay.
Or maybe I will.
Okay. What I'm gonna do is give me 1 second, and I'm gonna get the tasting notes, okay? Of
more than just somebody rambling.
This guy's good.
2009 that I have in here, and.
I mean, it's not totally organized, but it's not bad.
Rafa, you might want to make me the host again.
Okay, how do I do that?
You you click on these 3 dots right here, and it'll, on my screen, and it'll say make host.
Here, okay, and name, make host.
My compliments.
Yes, ready. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm gonna get that sheet.
Bored people.
And now, Rafa, if you would unmute yourself. Rafa, if you would unmute yourself, I've muted everyone. And you need to unmute yourself for us to hear you.
I'm open to any questions that you may have. Please do so. Interrupt me anytime you want. Okay, so we go along with the Viña Verde 2015.
talk to us a little bit about Rioja in general. For me, you know, I've been in the wine industry for a long time. And I
Yes.
think of Rioja, it's kind of like, you know, there are places in the world that are just iconic wine regions. Tuscany, Burgundy, Bordeaux, Napa, Willamette Valley, Mendoza. I think of Rioja as, you know, one of those really iconic wine regions. And but maybe in some ways one of the more tradition bound wine regions. Talk to us a little bit about just in general about Rioja, what makes Rioja such a special place?
Well, definitely. Okay. Well, Rioja is probably no, it's the most important region in Spain of producing wine region. Okay. Where it's located in the front, where it's located in that latitude in 44 is given us. We have two different kind of climates. We have the Mediterranean climate and we have a little bit colder Atlantic climates over there. Okay, that is in a perfect location for producing wines. And the part of Rioja is divided in three parts. Okay, you have the northern part, which is the Basque Country, which is called the Rioja Alavesa. Then you have the Rioja Alta, and then you have the Rioja Baja. Okay, between the Rioja Alta and the Rioja Baja, probably you have 1 degree at least in the temperature. The temperature 1 degree more in the Baja, so the wines mature a little bit sooner. So we can produce in the north the Tempranillo, which is the native grape in Rioja, and also, you know, the Garnacha. We produce it in the Rioja Baja, which has a faster maturation and is like a more balsamic or more juicy, yummy grape. Okay, difficult to grow, and only in the you need excellent weather conditions in order to have a good Garnacha. But Rioja overall, well, it's been making wine since the Romans. Okay, so it has a very, very long history of wine producing. Okay, we have found you know, the jars and other utensils over there, wine utensils over there before the seventh century before Christ. Okay, so we know that at least at that time they were doing wine already over there in Rioja. All right. So yes, it's a extremely important region. It's the longest region. There are planted about 66 hectares, 120,000 acres. Okay, and is the oldest DO in Spain. The DO as established is from the beginning of the 1930s. Okay, so that is Rioja. Yes, we are in the north part of Spain, and we have a mountain. Okay, which is between the ocean and the region that protects, you know, from a very cold temperature. Okay, so we have a sort of a perfect weather conditions to grow grapes. Yeah.
Has there ever been phylloxera in Rioja?
Yeah, well, we had it. We had it in the early 20th century. Okay, and then we had it, but before us, the French had it. Okay, right. So the French came to Rioja in the early 20th century as well to buy wine. Okay, in fact, in Rioja, we didn't age the wines until the French came over and taught us how to do it. Okay, so we have a lot of French tradition at the time of producing our wines. Yeah, we have the Phylloxera and also that made a lot of the damage over there. Yes, but since the Phylloxera was, you know, something bad that becomes as something very good, okay? Because the education that the French gave us is what is Rioja today, probably.
Right. Because the vines were all dying in France, and the French needed to find wine somewhere else.
That's
Came
correct.
to Rioja
That's correct.
And
Yeah.
help the winemakers at that time to modernize what they were doing, so the wines would be more successful as a
Yeah.
replacement for the French wines, which were there basically weren't any because all the vines were dying.
Yeah, that's correct. So they came over to Spain to buy wine, okay? And since they were a proficiency in aging the wines, well, that is something that we got from them, okay? Until the Philosopher, until this time in history in Rioja, they were just year wines, okay? So without aging. So we learned the French techniques.
Talk to us about the 2015 Viña Alberdi.
Well, 2015 was a little bit challenging vintage. Okay, it was a hot year, but by fortune, at the end of in the last months of maduration, well, it corrected a little bit, and we had a sort of you know, long sunny days and warm, and then also the temperature was you know, getting colder at night. So we have a nice maduration at the end of the vintage. And what happened? We have a lot of water as well. Okay, so it was a challenging vintage. But what happens when we have difficult vintages in Rioja? The wine that benefits the most is Viña Alberdi. Okay, because some other wines we don't probably we don't well, we produced in 2015 Ardans as well, but I don't think we did anything else. Okay, so Alberdi benefits because the best of the vineyards they go to the Viña Alberdi. Okay, so this one should be very, very nice.
You know, we had a tasting with the winemaker from Domaine Tempier in Bandol a few weeks ago, and he mentioned that the 2012 was a very, very challenging vintage in Provence. There was a lot of rain.
Yes.
But his favorite wine in their wine cellar at Domaine Tempier,
well, you know,
is the 2012, because, you know, great winemakers can make excellent wine in challenging vintages.
Yeah. Okay, but for example, in the case of Viña Alta that we did the 2012, we have an excellent Garnacha. Okay. Right. Okay, so that is why. Okay, we did 2011 was an excellent vintage, and we didn't do the Viña Alta. Okay, because we don't have proper Garnacha to do that wine. However, in 2012 was the opposite. We had a nice Tempranillo, okay, and also an excellent Garnacha. All right, so that is yeah, because something that we do in our winery, we skip the vintages. All right.
Annette has just popped up on the screen from Bourget, who is your distributor here, and I want to thank her for arranging for this to happen and acknowledging her. And she asked the question, I think, isn't that why the oldest Rioja houses are built on the railway tracks coming into Haro?
Say again, I didn't get the question.
The oldest Rioja houses, bodegas, are built on the railroad tracks. So
that's correct, yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like why so many wineries are on rivers, is because that was the way they could transport the wines to
yeah, well,
wherever they needed to go.
As I said, it was very, very convenient. Okay, the railroad it was just a new thing. Okay, and until then we were transporting the wine with you know, horses and donkeys. Okay, Well, we couldn't go that very far, okay, that way. So that was a very important in the rail way was extremely important in the development of Rioja and our capacity to send the wines to other areas. Okay, so yes, most of a few very important centennial wineries, they are all around the station neighborhood. That's correct.
How many cases or bottles of wine a year does if you're willing to answer this question, how many cases of wine a year does La Rioja Alta produce?
Yeah, difficult to say, okay, but because depends on the vintages as well and the fruit and all those things, okay. As I tried to say before, we don't standardize. We don't do anything standard, okay? So it changes from vintage to vintage, okay? But anyhow, the Gran Reserva 904, we may be making like 120,000 barrels, more or less, okay? 100,000, 120,000, okay? Vineyard Danza may be like 200,000 barrels, okay? And Vineyard Verde, we may do like close to 400,000, more or less.
So the reason I asked that question is, one of the things that I regularly say about wine is that the quality of a lot of wine varies inversely to the amount of it that is made. So, you know, if you make 100 cases of a wine, it's going to be a different kind of wine than if you make 10,000 cases.
Well,
but somehow La Rioja Alta makes an enormous, what is realistically an enormous amount of wine, but they may also make wine of extraordinary quality.
Well, yes.
How do you do that?
That is, we are proof that being, you know, larger is not, it doesn't go against the quality, okay? We are not extremely large, okay? Let's say that we are the big of the small, mm-hmm. and the small of the big, okay? Mm-hmm. In Rioja, we're a medium-sized winery, but yeah, we are exactly. We've been making the wine for 130 years. We've been aging the wine for 130 years, okay? And so we have such a tradition and such experience on what we're doing, okay? That well, we can produce decent amounts of wine and have excellent qualities, okay? Yes, I think that we are proof that that can be done, okay? You know what happens? Wineries are very intensively money demanding, okay? So sometimes small wineries, okay, those wineries that then make 3,000 cases or bottles of 10,000 bottles or things like that, sometimes it's difficult, okay, because many of them, very small ones in Spain, but they are undercapitalized, okay, they cannot have more than 2 vintages in inventory, okay, because they don't have the money for the next vintage and things like that, okay, so small is not synonymous of good, is my point, okay. The same that large is not synonymous of bad. Right. So you have the exceptions in everywhere. Yeah?
When did the tradition of holding the wines back so long, which is unique to Rioja, pretty much, when did that start and why did that start?
Well, there is a philosophy that, you know, Tempranillo is a grape that ages beautiful, okay? So, you know, the producers in Rioja, they have that feeling, above all the more centennial wineries, that you know, age, the Tempranillo is going to present itself much better with aging than without it, okay? So you have the new Tempranillos that they are, you know, fruit intense, powerful, and all those things. And then you have the Riojas, centennial Riojas, the traditional Riojas, that they have a lot of aging, and they have spent a lot of time in the barrel as well. So that Tempranillo with all these, you know, aromas, tastes, nuances, they are beautiful. extremely beautiful. Okay, so that is why the reason is because we believe we don't use oak in order the wine to taste oak. Okay, we use the oak in order to the wine to get all these properties from the wood. Okay, that is going to make it you know, extremely pleasant. Okay, and we use American oak. Okay, which is a softer transmission of the properties of the wood to the wine. Okay, so yes, that is the only reason, and it's been, well, probably since we know how to do it, we've been doing the wines in that way. Our first wine was the Gran Reserva in 90, that the first vintage was in 1890, and this wine at that time was a Reserva. Okay, it was a 3 years wine. All right, but over the years we were, you know, we were putting more aging in the wines until today that the Gran Reserva in 90 leaves the winery with 12 years minimum.
You know, just, you know, Chateau Latour really starts to show its best when it's 20 years old from a good vintage. But they make you pay for it 2 years before you get it.
Yeah.
They don't age it for you.
You see how nice people we are that we keep it ourselves, okay? And then when the wine is ready, we pass it on to you. Yes.
Well, it is a unique thing about Rioja that when you receive the wine, when the wine is released, it's ready to drink. I mean, that's a very unique thing.
That's a very unique thing, okay? And well, you know that the French, they stop, you know, aging or having ready the wines. They started to sell the wines, you know, with the aging in oak, and then, well, they passed the financing to you, okay? We are not doing that in Rioja yet, okay? What I can tell you is that in order to have, you know, those wineries, those centennial wineries, that they maintain huge inventories and other things, that wouldn't be, you know, reliable. That wouldn't be possible today, okay, to maintain such inventories in a new business, okay? We can do that because, I mean, that is the heritage of 100 years, okay?
Right.
But today, it wouldn't make any sense to build up a winery, you know, keeping that concept, okay?
Annette points out that at La Rioja Alta, there's a team that racks the barrels by hand.
That's
6
correct.
days a week.
Yeah, all wines are racked every 6 months. All barrels are racked every 6 months. Okay, we have a team of about 18, 20 people that the only thing that they do in the winery is racking those 30,000 or 35,000 barrels that they are. So yes, and they do it under the candle light. We use a candle, okay, and then we empty the barrel. When it starts getting blurred, then we stop and get those sediments out, and we put the clean wine in another barrel. Okay, so that is what they do continuously. Why the candle light?
You still use a candle, not a flashlight or some kind of artificial light?
No, at all. Yeah, when you go to the winery, you're not going to see it, okay? Because they show you the winery. Well, no every day that you go down to the cellar, they are going to be doing rackings. But if you are lucky and they are racking the barrels in that moment, you will see that they are doing it with the candle. Yes, and the candle is important because it's much more easier to see the quality of the wine with a candle than with a flashlight. Okay, wow. So yeah, they keep on doing it with a candle. Yeah.
People laugh at me because I decant wine with a candle, you know, instead of one of these gadgets that you do this with. And
yeah,
well, and now I have a good reason. I'm going to tell them about.
No, but the racking is a very important process in the winery, okay? Because you are going to have several purposes over there. You are going to see if the wine or the barrel has any defects, okay? You are going to clarify the wine, and if you are going to oxygenize the wine if it's needed, all right? So that is mainly what you do with the racking. So.
John Glass asked, do you use a lot of new oak or some age on the barrels?
Well, we use only new oak in Viñalverde, all right, the first year. because the second is all barrels as well. That is the way we introduce the new oak in the winery. Our average age right now of the barrels is about 3-4 years. Okay, 3-4 wines. Okay, the 3 or 4 wines have passed through those barrels. All right. Yes, and Alberdi has the first year. Alberdi is with a new oak.
And that's just because the fruit is intense enough to handle the new oak without being.
Yes, also since the vintage of 2001, Alberdi was sort of always nice and pleasant, but a little bit light. Okay, so we decided to give it a little bit more of a structure to Alberdi, a little bit more freshness. All right, so that is when we started to put the new oak the first year in Alberdi. All right, so we preserve the fruit a little bit more. Okay, so now Alberdi, you're going to find that is a wine with a very nice fruit, very pleasant, nice aromas. Okay, and it's fresh. All right, so that is the change that was a fundamental change that we did with the vintage, the 2001 vintage in the winery in general for all the wines.
Well, I think
as per the 2001 vintage, yes.
I think with the 2015,
yes,
comes what I detect, what I appreciate in it is the texture of the wine.
Yeah.
It has a really kind of rich velvety texture, which I don't think it would have without the new, the new oak treatment.
Yeah, probably not. No, definitely not. Okay, that richness that you have now, we wouldn't have it before. As I said, as I tell you before, we did that fundamental change in the wines that were a little bit tired, a little bit, very old style, like a little bit with that peak of oxidation. And now in our wines, even the oldest one, the one with 12 years old, like Gran Reserva E90, you are not going to find a peak of oxidation there. Okay, never again. Okay, you are going to find potency, you are going to find fruit, and you are going to have, all this elegance and the smoothness and those long-lasting, smooth, long-lasting wines. Okay.
The Vigno Alberdi is beautiful to drink tonight. I think. I wish I'd opened it a couple of hours before I did. It would be even more beautiful. But how long a life do you think it has? Is it a 10-year wine or?
Oh, well, it's going to surprise you. Okay, well, the 10-year wine definitely. Okay, but it could go longer and longer. It's sometimes they surprise you, those wines. It's a wine that really is not supposed to be produced for a very, very long aging. Okay, but they stand very pretty. 10 years is going to do fantastic.
Yeah, I would think.
I mean, without any problem. Any of our wines wouldn't have any problem in 10 years. Okay, so that is.
We can talk about the Vineyard Danza now if you'd like, but I have another embarrassing personal story to tell you about the Vineyard Danza.
Okay, go ahead.
In the early 90s, I was the sommelier at a restaurant in Nashville, a really, really amazing restaurant in the southern United States called the Wild Boar.
Yes.
And the chef is now the fellow who was our chef then is now probably the most famous chef in the United States. He's definitely the most famous chef in the United States. And we had a wine cellar with about 3,000 different wines on it. So we won the award from the Wine Spectator and all that stuff. It was an amazing restaurant. But one night, a customer, and I remember this so vividly, I actually remember what table he was sitting at, called me over and said, "You have a wine listed incorrectly on your wine list." And I said, "Well, maybe, but I'm really careful. And I don't, and if I do, I'm not aware of it." And he said, "Well, you have this Rioja listed as the winery being Vineyard Danza and the wine being La Rioja Alta. But the winery is actually called La Rioja Alta and the wine is called Vineyard Danza." And I was younger then, I was really cocky. And so I
Yeah.
explained to him about the three parts of Rioja, you know, Alta, Baja, and Alavesa, and that you know, the reason it said La Rioja Alta on the label was because the grapes for this wine come from the La Rioja Alta part of Rioja.
Yeah,
And he
well,
said, you know, that's all well and good, sir, but you might want to check because I think you're wrong. I went back in the wine cellar and I got a bottle of it. And of course he was right. And I went back to the table. I said, I'm so embarrassed. You know, I really am very careful. And he said, well, I said, you're right. And I'm wrong. He said, well, I know I'm right. I'm one of the owners of the winery.
yes, but believe me, in Spain there are many people that they think that La Rioja Alta is called, the winery is called Viñardanza.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the man
So-
that I was talking to was one of the owners of La Rioja Alta,
Oh, okay.
or at least he said he was. I don't remember his name, but, and I mean, he had to
Okay.
be, because otherwise how would he have picked that one wine in 3,000 wines to look at and
Yeah,
call
that's
these a task?
correct. That's
for?
correct.
So I
Okay,
don't
but-
remember his name, and I don't remember him having an accent, so I don't know. But anyway, he said he was one of the owners of the winery, and he caught me in a mistake. And so he drank La Rioja Alta Viñardanza that night. No charge. We didn't charge him for the wine.
Oh, okay. Really? Well, lucky him. Eh?
Well, you know, it was
No,
very
yeah,
embarrassing.
there are many anecdotes about those things, and it's true that people relate us very much to what is a Viñardanza, which is probably our flagship wine, and for the wine that people know us the most. Okay, so yeah, those confusion is not rare at all. Okay, but
Well, I mean, you're supposed to get those details right, and I think
Yeah.
mostly I did, but I got that one wrong. So talk to us about the 2012 Viñardanza.
Okay, Viñardanza, a beautiful wine. Okay, 2012, as I said, well, it was a good year. It was not a bad year. It was, in fact, it was the DO was a very good year. Garnacha was excellent. Okay, and in our the winery happens the following as well. Okay, that could be that Rioja gives excellent vintage, and we say no. For us, it's not that excellent. It's just very good. Or vice versa, okay? The Rioja says is very good, and we say no. For us, that vintage has been excellent, okay? So we try to be as honest as we can with this. I mean, when you declare many excellent vintages, you are going to burn out yourself, okay? So you have to be very careful with that, and you have very honest. And in our case, that people expect so much of us, we have to be very honest on those things, okay? And if something is not going well, or either we don't make the wine, or we recognize the things how they are. Okay, so that to start. 2012, it was a good vintage. We have an excellent Garnache, perfect maduration of the Garnache, and the Garnache, what it does in Viñardanza is going to give, it's going to help in the color and the body of the wine. Okay, and also the Garnacha is kind of fruity. Okay, so this aspect and spicy. Okay, so that spiciness and fruity of the wine is a part is going to be the Garnacha. Garnacha is 20% in this wine. Okay, which is a lot. Okay, and 80% Tempranillo. Okay, so if you see the wine. Okay, the color is kind of intense. Okay, it's that cherry color, and it has a nice depth. Okay, and looks very nice. It looks very pretty. Okay? And then in the nose, very intense. Okay, spicy, intense. That is what I'm finding myself in this wine. Okay. Cherries, fresh fruit, I get here. Okay, but it's gonna change. It's gonna change to a little bit more medicine and things like that. Okay, in the nose. Oh, like a beak in the mouth. Okay, expands, stays for a long time, and then you have those like a round, soft tannins. Okay, very powerful, very nice. I don't know what you think about it if you have tasted already.
Well,
And it's
It's-
gonna,
you know,
Yeah.
it's so
Complex
funny
flavor.
because it's 8 years old. It
Yes.
looks young. It smells young. It tastes young, but it's 8 years old. And I mean,
correct.
it's very powerful. It's very complex.
Yeah,
It has, you know, what struck me, and this is, I'm not sure you're going to agree or approve of my saying this, but it is, in some ways, it is kind of like a really fine red Burgundy, in that in Burgundy, with the greatest wines, they talk about the peacock's tail that opens up in your mouth like this, like a male peacock's tail does when he gets excited.
they expand inside the mouth.
Expands in your mouth almost to make your cheeks open
Yeah.
up and
Like a balloon. Yeah.
look like a
Exactly.
balloon in your mouth, exactly. And it's I don't like saying wines are Burgundian because they never are, but except Burgundies. But this wine is, in that way, is very Burgundian because it is so expansive on the palate.
Yeah.
It does really open up with that peacock's tail effect, which
Yeah.
is for me, very high praise.
Yeah, it has a kind of a potent attack, okay, expands, and then softness itself, you know, with those rounded soft tannins, okay? That is what they produce, what I feel when I have this wine. And it stays very, very, very long. And you can see the complexity, you can see the elegance, you can see the harmonious, the harmony in the structure, okay? That is very pretty. Yeah, it's kind of nice. Mine is tasting very beautiful. Yeah.
You mentioned that the tannins are soft.
Yeah.
They are, but they're also very pronounced.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very tannic wine.
Yeah. Oh
Right.
yes, definitely. Yeah. But you see how they sweeten at the end. Okay.
Yeah.
And that characteristic, very, very, very characteristic of the vineyards.
It's not, the tannins aren't astringent. They're
No,
just
no,
present.
no. Yeah.
And
That's
and
correct.
that makes for long life, right? The tannins are an antioxidant. They make for wines with a long aging potential, as this one does. I mean, at
Oh,
8
yes.
years old, it's an infant.
Oh, that is very young right now. It has many, many years to go. Okay, so without you have to wait for the 20 years or so, things like that, 20, 25 years, and the wine is gonna show incredible, unless something goes wrong during the journey. Okay,
Right.
but yeah, the wine is gonna be beautiful in 20
Again,
years.
Annette mentions not many wines are built on secondary characteristics these days. Burgundy is a great example of wines that can be secondary versus primary. That's kind of I agree, that's kind of a wine geek
Yes.
explanation of what we're talking
Yeah.
about here in that Burgundian characteristic in the wine.
Yeah.
That it's more than just primary fruit. There's more there than just, you know, as you said, red fruits,
Yes.
red currants and that kind of thing. There's a
Yeah,
lot
well,
more than that.
when you start to, you know, to flow the eucalyptus or medicine aromas, it's beautiful too, okay, because it's gonna have several layers over there, okay, and they're gonna be changing as the wine is opening in the glass, which is what is when you have those meals, okay, and then you are having your meal and tasting the wine. You are getting amazed every sip that you taste, okay? Because the wine changes. And then
So,
when you,
Rafa,
yes,
talk to us about the American oak thing.
well,
How
American
did
oak,
How did it become traditional in Rioja to use American
Well-
oak? Why did it become traditional to use American oak?
if you want to do this style of wines, okay, of these characteristics, elegance and balanced wines, elegance, silky, soft wines. French oak is very aggressive. Okay, the transmission of the wood of the French oak is much more aggressive than the American oak. Okay, So in order to get this kind of wines, you really cannot do it with any other oak. It must be the American. Okay, the transmission is much slower. Okay, takes longer to transmit the properties of the wine to the wood to the wine, and then it is going to gives you that smoothness, that vanilla, that coconut. Okay, that is very, very characteristics of those long aging wines that we do. Okay. You know, to have these wines for long aging in American oak, that would be, you know, like a sort of a huge wood aggressive wines. Okay, so that is what we do. Even though we don't use, as I say, new oak for those wines, we use wines with oaks with 3-4 years old. Also as a little bit as an explanation from the winery, to let you know that we buy the wood in United States, okay, in Kentucky, and in the area of the Mississippi, and the Kentucky, Ohio, these areas over there, and we bring the wood to Spain, and we air dry it for 3 years in open air, okay, and then we produce our own barrels. Okay, we have our own cooperage as well. Okay. We used to buy many years ago. We used to buy the barrels to another maker, but we were having problems with the at that time with the quality of the barrels, and we decided that we needed to produce our own barrels. Okay. So now we have a total vertical integration in the winery. We go from the vineyard. We go to the production, the fermentation, the aging in oak, the aging we barrel of our wine, and then we sell it, distribute, and we go directly to the distribution. Okay, so we do all the phases of the business. We control all the phases of the business. We don't buy since 2010. We are totally autosufficient. Okay, we don't buy grapes from anybody. We have about, in the group, we have about 600 hectares, 200 acres. Okay, and we don't need to buy grapes from anybody now. Okay, so you know, we control the whole process.
You know, Rafa, the truth is that French oak is a relatively recent phenomenon. French oak wasn't really used in winemaking until most wineries in Europe, until the Russian Revolution, used Russian oak. But then with the Russian Revolution in the in the early 20th century, Russian oak was no longer available. A lot of it was Crimean, Georgian oak that was used even in Bordeaux and Burgundy. And then all of a sudden, Russian oak was no longer available because of the Russian Revolution. And they had to find barrels somewhere else. And all of a sudden, French oak barrels became the solution to a problem that kind of happened overnight.
Yes. Well, we use it, you know, in the other winery that we have in Rioja, which is called Torre de Oña. We use a little bit of in Torre de Oña, in that wine, we use a little bit of a Caucasian oak, okay, from Belarus. Okay, that helps a little bit, you know, with the fruit, and also gives some sort of a sweet taste to the wine, and behaves a little bit as a catalyzer between with the French oak. Okay, so kind of like it pushes the French oak a little bit off. All right. So we use it, and we've been doing it for several years. We are experimenting still with it, and we use about 20%, 27% of the oak we use in those wines is Caucasian oak from Belarus. Yeah.
Why is, I have two questions about the Tempranillo grape. Why is Tempranillo in Rioja so different from Tempranillo in Ribera del Duero?
Well, the reason is the climate, okay? In Ribera del Duero, the climate is, first of all, is much more extreme. Also, they are a much higher altitude than in Rioja. They are like 1,600 meters over the sea level. And that gives, you know, grapes, smaller grapes, but with thicker skin, which gives wines with much more structure, okay, and more color. All right. So basically, it's the weather and the weather that is owed to the location of the region, which is a totally different characteristic that we is in Rioja. All right. So that is the only reason. Yes. Okay.
What is
More
the
extreme weather. The winters are very cold, and the summers are very hot. And the difference of temperature from the day to the night are much more apart. Okay, very cold at night and very hot during the day. Okay, that is basically the main characteristics of Ribera del Duero. Much more structured wines than in Rioja. You can get closer to Ribera del Duero maybe in Rioja Alavesa, all right? But still, Ribera del Duero gives wines with much more structure than the Rioja Alavesa. Yes.
What is the soil like in Rioja?
Well, we have most of the soils over there. Okay, we have ferrous clay, chalky clay. Okay, we have what they call sandy and alluvial. Okay, we have all of them. Okay, so maybe the ferrous clay. The most popular are the ferrous clay and the chalky clay in Rioja. For example, we have all of them. Okay, we have mostly all of them, and depends on the wines that we are producing and the days we are going to pick up the grapes from one plot to another to produce a particular wine. Okay, because that is something that must be said about Rioja, is that we are not vineyard specific at the time of producing the wine. Okay, we are going to use the grapes that in that vintage are going to be more suitable for producing each of the wines. Okay, so all of the vineyards are all spread out around Rioja. Okay, Rioja Baja, Rioja Alta, and Rioja Alavesa. Okay, so that is how we work over there. So what kind of soil we are going to use for producing Alberdi? It will depend. Probably Alberdi is going to be more in the line of chalky clay, okay, and ferrous clay. Okay, the ferrous clay that are going to give the wines a little bit more potent and structure. Yes.
You know, Rafa, there are some grapes that most grapes can make decent or good or great wine in different parts of the world. So Chardonnay, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Syrah, etc., translate from one place to another and produce
Yes.
wines that are, excellent from good to great or whatever. But there's a couple of grapes. There are a few grapes that really seem to be only successful in one place. Nebbiolo is really only successful in Piedmont. Tempranillo is kind of successful in two places. Why is that? Why is Tempranillo so successful in Rioja and Ribera del Duero, and really not very successful in other parts of the world, as far as I have experienced?
Well, we must say that it's for the weather condition, the specific weather condition that we have in those frames of vineyards that we have in Spain. Okay, I know that in California they did try with Tempranillo. Americans are very innovative. Okay, they want to try everything and see how it goes. Okay, and it didn't work very well over there. It didn't work well in South America either. Okay, well, those are if those grapes are over there, they are native from Rioja. That is the grapes that the nature gave there, and according to the weather condition is where that grape grows well. For example, you can translate that to the Albariños. All right, Albariños, they grow beautifully in Galicia. All right, but when it leaves Galicia, well, it has nothing to do. Okay, same thing. Okay, I tasted Albariños from other parts of the world, and nothing to do. Okay, that the freshness, that acidity, that they're only gonna do it from the the place that the grape is native. All right. So that is true. Happens, for example, that Cabernet Sauvignon not only grows beautiful in France, it also grows beautiful in California as well. Okay, but yeah, nature.
Well, thank goodness, thank goodness for Rioja and Ribera del Duero, and let's not worry about whether or not we can get great Tempranillo from Napa.
Yeah, other examples in Rioja with Graciano and Masuelo is the same thing. Okay, Graciano and Masuelo is difficult to grow in other places. Okay,
Right.
So yeah.
I mean, Garnacha obviously does well all over the world, but
Yes.
it's just a different animal. So talk to us about we're drinking the 2009 904, but talk to us about 904.
Well, 904 is, well, that is a classic of La Rioja Alta. It's a wine that has been for 100 years around. Okay, and you know, the story of 904, let me give you some backgrounds on the wine. You know, the Ardanza family has had its own winery many years ago. And Mr. Ardanza proposed to La Rioja Alta to merge both wineries, okay? Ardanza Winery and La Rioja Alta. So they merged in 1904, all right? And in order to commemorate that date, then a wine was produced, and it was the Gran Reserva 904, all right? So that is the wine that was made to commemorate the merge, all right? It's a beautiful wine. And we use in 904, we use Tempranillo, and we use a little bit of Graciano as well, okay? Graciano is a grape that is gonna push the acidity on the wine. So it's gonna be a long aging wine, so you need a very high dose of acidity. So it's gonna push the acidity, and also Graciano is gonna help with the color of the wine, all right? It's a wine that we have, it's been aging for a minimum of 4 years in American oak, and a minimum of another 4 years in the barrel before it is released. Okay, it's a wine that you can characterize because for its elegance. Okay, very complex wine, lots of aromas, and also beautiful in the mouth. Okay, so that would be 904. It's a perfect wine, you know, to pair with them. They're very versatile, okay, but with you know, stews and things like that, you can use it. It goes very well with desserts as well, like chocolate desserts. It works perfectly. So that is an iconic wine in the winery, the Gran Reserva 904. That is more or less the characteristic of this wine. If you want, we can taste it, but it's you will see there is sapely, elegance, finesse, delicacy. That is what you are going to find in that wine in the Gran Reserva 904. Okay? And all kind of aromas, of course. You are going to have toast. You are going to have, first you are going to have fruits, then you are going to have, you know, this kind of a cedar toast, sort of a cigar box, all these kind of things. Okay, but let's go and taste it. It's the best way to know. Well, I'm gonna be with the 2011. All right, I can see it. Okay, cherry, intense. Okay, nice. It has a nice aging, sort of a golden, red golden over there, rivet from aging. Okay, very pronounced. Like a raspberry, blackberry, things like that. Yeah?
I thought red plums when I tasted it. It really.
Well, plums in general, plums you are gonna have, you are gonna find in most of Riojas. Okay. The thing is that the plums in the young Riojas are too much. Okay, they are too much. They are a little bit overwhelming. All right. You have the plums, but they are so refined. Okay, they are not gonna like bother you at all. Yeah, that is the beautiful of the long agents. Okay. Yeah, the plums definitely they are there. liquority, cloves, things like that.
Right.
Mints, wood. Nice.
There's some saddle leather
Yeah.
there, but not overwhelming, kind of nuanced in the wine. Soft fruit tannins, resolved soft fruit tannins, not powerful tannins, but resolved fruit tannins that are the underpinning of the wine, not the overwhelming characteristic of the wine. Really lovely mouthfeel, really lovely texture on the palate.
Yeah, yeah, and also, but as you see, all wine, okay, but it's fresh, lively, okay, and at the same time refined, elegant, lasting, okay, and very pretty.
It's not heavy at all. It's, as you said, it's fresh, it's refreshing.
Oh yes.
There's the balanced acidity in the wine. So it's rich, but it's not heavy.
Yeah. Well, I'm testing the 2011, and the 2011 still has a lot to go. Okay, a lot of to
Right.
go. Okay? Probably it's very, very young. I'm sure that the 2009 is showing beautiful. Yeah.
Well, it is. I taste. I drink wine to enjoy wine, but I taste wine as a more sometimes a kind of intellectual pursuit. So
Yeah.
I often, like as I am right now, if I'm tasting these wines, I think about what would I think if I didn't know what it was?
Yes.
If I were tasting this wine blind, would I know it was Rioja, or would I think it was Rioja?
Yeah, you would. Yes. Definitely.
And I hope I would. Maybe it depends on the day. On a good day, I might know it was Rioja.
Yeah.
You know, Clive Coates used to say that, who's a great wine journalist, used to say that the night before a really important tasting, he always made sure to get really, really drunk,
Yeah.
because the next day with a hangover, his palate would be so much more sensitive to what he tasted. So you just, everybody, and I mean, Clive Coates is one of the most, important wine journalists ever. Everybody has good and bad days, but I hope I would know that I would identify this Rioja. And then if I was having a good enough day that I knew it was Rioja, I would say, okay, if there's a Rioja, how good is it? And what do I think what amount of money do I think it's good enough to sell for? Right?
And what would you say?
Well, if I tasted this wine blind and you said this is $100 retail wine, I would say, let's buy a lot of it. And it's half that.
Yeah. Okay.
So
No, that's true. And let me do an appreciation. We also produce modern wines, as you know, okay, in Torredeoña and Arce and Ribera del Duero. But if you see that, Tempranillo, modern Tempranillo, and it's very difficult to locate that wine in the map, okay? Tends that all these wines, they tend to be, very homogeneous. They tend to be very similar, which sometimes is very difficult to distinguish wines from Rioja and from other parts of the world, okay? With those wines, with the aging they have and the characteristics of those wines, it's relatively easy to identify where those wines are coming from, okay, and what sort of wine it is. I'm sure that anyone who is a little bit accustomed, okay, to Rioja wines, to these old aged Rioja wines, they will never miss it when they taste it blind. Okay, I mean, I don't say that they are gonna say that wine is La Rioja Alta being Gran Reserva 904 in 2009. No, I don't expect, but they are gonna tell you that can only be Rioja. Right. Okay, because those wineries, La Rioja Alta and others similar, those wineries, they are Rioja itself. Okay, so that is not a Rioja, that is a Rioja itself. So you can, it's difficult to miss. Okay, so when you go with the modern wines that they are, more powerful with a lot of wood and lots of fruit, it's very difficult to identify them, the region or even the grapes even. Okay, so maybe you can compare them a Rioja. Well, Cabernet is a special powerful grape. Okay, but anyhow, I mean, sometimes wines tend to be very homogeneous in all parts of the world. Okay, if you are comparing a Tempranillo with a Pinot Noir, definitely not. Okay, but if you compare it with other kind of wines, like with a young Cabernet or things like that, well, both grapes, they have their characteristics, but it's going to be, for someone that is not very expert, it's going to be difficult to identify.
I mean, you're exactly right. In a blind tasting of this wine with a young Napa Valley Cabernet,
Yeah,
or a young Rhone Valley Red, or an Australian Shiraz, or an Argentine Malbec, or whatever variation of that theme, this wine is not going to be.
yeah,
It's not going to seem it, because it's not going to. It's those, what stands out in those kind of tastings is what I call sledgehammer wines.
yes.
And
Yeah,
this is not a sledgehammer wine. And so if you're tasting young Napa Valley Cabernet and Australian Shiraz and Argentine Malbec, and young Côte d'Ivoire or whatever, this wine is not going to fare well in that context because it's not powerful.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, these wines, they are going to show off, okay, when in a blind tasting, definitely, okay, always they will show off, okay, in a way. However, modern wines is more difficult because they tend to be kind of homogeneous, all of them.
Rafa, I've been lucky in my life. I have a lot of wealthy friends with huge wine cellars that are very generous. And so I've tasted a lot, not because I can afford them, but because I have friends that can. I've tasted a lot of really, really great, legendary wines in my life.
Oh, nice.
And I think that a lot of those, if I listed the top 100 wines I've ever tasted or whatever, a lot of those wines would be 13.5% alcohol. And again, here is this 904 that's 13.5% alcohol. I just checked. Is that restrained alcohol level increasingly difficult to achieve with dry wines in Rioja, or are you?
What is happening? The 2009 was 13.5, and now we are a little bit over 14. Okay, in alcohol in our wines. Okay, so what happens? I mean, the temperature, no doubt, is no doubt about it, rising. Okay, so that is affecting our wines. We really don't want the very alcoholic wines. Okay, I mean, we have gone from 12.5, 12.7 to 13, 13.5. Now we are over 14. Okay, so that is real. It's happening. Okay, it's not a joke. Okay, so far we are controlling this and we can work with it. But at the time, if things keep on going like that, I don't know what is going to happen. We don't want alcoholic wines. Okay, very alcoholic wines. Okay, we are fine. These wines don't need to be very alcoholic. If we want to have that elegance and that characteristic of the wines that we produce, we rather go with lower alcohol levels. Okay, but that is what we are getting now.
Do you? We had a tasting with a Beaujolais winemaker who has been at the winery where he makes wine for 30 years. And when he first started there, his wines were 9 to 11% alcohol. Yeah. And his 2015s or 2020s are going to be 15% alcohol.
Yeah.
That's wow. That's a 2/3 increase in 30 years. That's catastrophic.
That's a lot. That's a
How
lot.
do you, I mean, Christian Moreau and Chablis sold off 2/3 of his Les Clos juice because it was going to be 15% alcohol if he vinified it dry in 2018. I mean, it's,
Well, we haven't reached those levels yet. Okay, let's see how it goes. For us, I mean, in the last 25 years or 30 years, we have gone for 12 and a half to what is today, which is just a little bit over 14. Okay, so fortunately, we can manage and it's manageable. Okay, what we have, and let's see what happens in the future. Okay,
do you change the blend a little? Is Matuelo or Graciano or Garnacho less alcoholic, and so you increase the
yeah, we
percentage of those?
increase and we reduce the percentages of the grapes according to the vintage. Okay, that for sure. And also, for example, we have reduced in Viña Danza. It used to be 25% garnacha. Now it's 20. Okay, so we do those things. And yeah, the winemaker has to play with all these kinds of things he has at hand. Okay? Yeah, definitely.
Well, Paris and Belen, is there anything you were hoping I would bring up or ask tonight that I've failed to address?
No, I think that I think we've been very complete. Okay, we have done a kind of yes.
What were the best vintages over there? I remember trying the 82 and the 87 Ardanza, which were excellent.
Yeah, well, the 73 for us was very good. Okay, you have 64 was incredible. 64, 73, and also one of the historics that we are going to talk same as we've been talking about 64 was 2001. Okay, more recent. That is a vintage that is going to be talked about for forever. All right, that's a huge, beautiful vintage. 2010 has been fantastic too. All right, 2011 has been excellent as well, but 2010, you know, yeah, was a little bit, you know.
Well, if 1973 was a great vintage in Rioja, it's the only place in the world that was a great vintage, I think.
Congratulations. 73, 2001, those have been incredible vintages for us. Okay, you know that we do every certain years we do what we call the special selection with Viña Danza and other wines. All right. With Viña Danza, we have done it only 64, 73, 2001, and 2010. 4 years in the existence of the wine. Okay.
Wow.
So those vintages for us were super, were huge. Yes, yes. And 2010 that we made a special selection. Oh, it was so beautiful. It was so nice. Yes. But you have to think in other terms too, okay? Because even though that is a super vintage, it's fantastic. I mean, at the end, you are talking about the little very specific nuances in that wine, okay? Because if you see our wines, they have a really consistency over the years, okay? When the wine is not going to be consistent, we are not going to make it, okay? So when you say, well, 2001 was incredible, okay, or 2010 was incredible, and 2011 was fantastic as well, the differences are going to be, I mean, you have to look for it, okay? At the end, right? But they are going to be there. Okay? You're going to need that touch of I don't know, the structure, in the acidity, in the aging potential that you can feel in that wine that is going to have in respect to the other vintages, even though both of them are going to age for very long. Okay, but you are going to see that one of them is going to have that potential a little bit more pronounced. Okay, so that is what we are talking about. Okay?
Yeah, I mean, our favorite is Viña Ardanza.
Yes.
And it never let us down. You know, it's always a great wine.
Yeah, well, that is the idea. That was what our people worked hard for. Okay, And I'm glad that you say that. Thank you very much for saying it.
No,
Because
and we enjoy the Alberdi, like, and obviously, like the Grand Reserva is exceptional.
yes,
But, like, with my good friend Mike is here, we who is in attendance, we tried many Ardanzas, and
yeah.
including an 87 sometime, like that.
Yeah.
It was excellent. Yeah.
Well, glad to hear. Okay, that is the purpose. That is exactly the purpose. That we have someone that says that when he has a vineyard danza, it doesn't matter what vintage is, he's gonna know that he's having a vineyard danza. Okay, that is exactly the purpose of this. Yes.
So, Rafa, I often end these tastes. I asked you for an hour and a half of your time, and we're rapidly approaching the end of that. And
No problem. Yes. I'm
I
free. Okay,
often-
so,
well, if people want to stay on, we can. But I often, or almost always, end these conversations with the same question, which is, and I'm getting ready to ask you a question. I'm not asking you what is the greatest wine you've ever tasted. My question is, what is the most memorable wine experience that you've had?
well, I have several. Okay, I have several. Well, I had the chance in 2 occasions, definitely, to have a 64, a Grand Reserva 904 64, and it was really a very, very nice experience. Okay, it was a kind of heavy experience. Okay, but let me tell you, and of this, in Rioja wines, I have had several experiences like that, and very well. But I'm going to tell you something. Not a long time ago, a friend of mine came to the house with a Silver Oak 2001. Okay, and it was a beautiful, beautiful experience. Okay, that I really didn't expect it. Okay, and it was huge. All right, and you know what? Silver Oak, which I have found out later on, they only use American oak.
Right.
Okay, probably is the only winery in California that they use American oak, and I became a fan of Silver Oak since then, because they have they put aging on the wine. Okay, and I loved it. So it was an incredible experience that totally unexpected. Okay, because if you come with a 64 904, well, it's gonna like me more or less, but at the end I know what I'm gonna get. Okay, but in one way or another. But when they brought me that bottle of Silver Oak, I had no idea of what to expect. Okay, so
You know that the 2001 Silver Oak is such an extraordinary wine.
Okay.
Silver Oak isn't today what it once was.
Yeah.
And their wines are not as special as they were at that time. But that wine was I've been, got wealthy friends who are generous. I've been lucky enough to taste it a few times. It is an extraordinary bottle of wine.
Well, and now since that experience, every time that I go to Provine, okay, I go directly to Silver Oak to see what they have. Okay, so yeah.
Yeah, well. Well, unless anyone has questions that I haven't addressed, I want to thank Annette and Mark for making this happen. And thank you, Rafa, for your time and your
thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. It's been great, okay? And thank you to everybody for being here. Yes. Thank you very much. And I love your store, okay? I mean,
thank you.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Most importantly,
muchas gracias.
Gracias, thank you.
Thank you for these amazing wines.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your time and information.
Salud.
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 I wish I was grilling a leg of lamb with rosemary and olive oil.
That would be good.
I mean, I'm having Cajun stuffed peppers from HelloFresh. I think they'll probably be pretty good with the Alberti, but I really wish I was having a grilled leg of lamb with rosemary and olive oil with the Ardanza.
Thank you very much. Thank you all, okay? It's been
Thank you.
Rafa, the wines are extraordinary. Thank you so much.
Thank
Hasta la
you.
próxima. Yes.
Hasta la próxima. Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Rafa. It's Annette.
Hey, Annette, how are you?
I'm
Where are you?
doing fine.
I don't see you.
Yeah, hang on a second.
Right there.
Back on here. There
How
I
are
am.
you? Hello, Annette. How are you? How are you?
Thanks,
I'm
Annette.
good.
Well,
How are you?
thank you very much for organizing this. Okay, it's been very
Thank you.
nice.
Annette.
Yeah, I love.
You need to thank Hoyt. It was.
Okay.
I will say this 2015 Vinho Verde, which we are selling for $19.99.
It's
I would say it is the best $20 red wine or $20 wine in our store. It's a
we
fantastic
should go and
wine.
get more.
Yeah, it's
For
nice.
$20, are you kidding me? I mean, it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a good boy, Alberti. Yes, he's the youngest that we have. He's a good boy.
It's delicious. I mean, you know, for $20, what do you want? You want something that tastes good tonight. It
Yeah.
tastes great. I mean, it's
Like
fantastic.
I
that.
can vouch.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Good, good.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes.
There are so few places that do what these guys do anymore, you know?
Yeah.
That it's really Tondonia and them really do it this way. And that's it.
It's at the same
That's
place.
what
huh?
I started the whole conversation with Rafa saying that for me, the two important wineries in Rioja are La Rioja Alta and Lopez de Heredia. And I'm was so excited to be able to have this event tonight because I've loved the wines for, I don't know, decades. I've been loving La Rioja Alta wines. So
I can tell you something that I can tell since I'm in the winery, which is 17 years now. I've seen how the pressure on quality is more and more and more and more, up to the point that it's getting obsessive now. Okay, all the questions in quality and production of the wine. So that is beautiful. Okay, because the interest for the owner of the winery in getting excellence out of this wine, the effort that they do is incredible. So yeah.
you better be making good wine these days. There's a lot of people in the world making great wine.
Oh yes.
And there's so much information about wine now that you kind of can't get away with reputation.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of pressure when you have to save your reputation.
The
Okay.
cost of entry is
Because
more.
people is going to be watching you very, very close. Okay, so you have to be very, very careful.
If you
One
have
mistake,
150 years.
You know,
you're out.
Rafa, my first job buying wine was at a restaurant in the early 70s.
Yes.
And we had all the first growth Bordeaux's on our wine list. We had Lafite, Latour, all those wines for $100 a bottle. But it was 1972. So I know that what we were serving was the 68s, or I don't really exactly remember, but it had to be 67, 68, or 69.
Yeah.
Latour, Lafite, Margaux, Haut-Brion, and whichever one I just left out. Those wines are atrocious. They're terrible wines, but we didn't know they were terrible wines because we hadn't actually tasted them. It had to be great because it was Lafite, but it was 67 Lafite, which is undrinkable.
Could be.
Yeah, but now you can't get away with that anymore. You can't just rest on your reputation.
Oh, no, you cannot. No, the market is going to make you pay right away, okay? It's not going to take long. They're going to put you up, yes.
And
Definitely.
fortunately, people like Annette and Mark actually let me taste the wine before I buy it sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't make mistakes like that. But we thought 68 Latour was a great wine because it was Chateau Latour. Didn't know any better. Didn't really know any. Of course, I was too young to drink, so I really didn't know any better.
Well, I think Rioja had a lot more great vintages than Bordeaux did back then.
Yeah.
Well, that's a really interesting point in that, because if you think about it, 61 was a great vintage in Bordeaux, right? We thought 66 was a great vintage, but it really turned out to not be all that good. The wines were kind of flashy, but they didn't age well. And then you've got the next vintage that was even decent was 1970, and those wines, they're not good wines. 71, 72, atrocious. 73, atrocious. 74, atrocious. 75, acceptable. 76
Wow.
acceptable, 77 atrocious, 78 atrocious, 79 atrocious, 80
It was
atrocious,
very
81
atrocious.
atrocious. Then along came 82.
Wow.
So the first great vintage from 1961 was 1982.
Wow.
And the European press said they were bad wines. They panned, the 82 Bordeaux's got terrible press in Europe because they said they tasted like California wines. And chateaus in Bordeaux were going out of business because they couldn't sell their wines because they were so terrible. And then along comes Robert Parker, and he says 82 is the best vintage ever in Bordeaux, and he saved the Bordeaux chateaus. He single-handedly saved a lot of chateaus from going out of business.
Wow.
And he wasn't right. He wasn't right. It wasn't the greatest vintage ever,
Está súper,
but it
está
was the
súper
best
linda, buen
vintage
corte.
since 61, 21 years, you know? So, I mean, it's an incredible thing if you think about it, that Bordeaux went 21 years without a successful vintage.
Okay.
They were still selling the wines for all that money.
Yeah, probably because they are also they are very strict. Okay, I think that in our case in Rioja we have an average of 2 excellent vintages per decade. Okay,
Right.
And
82 and 87.
yeah, so I don't know.
And that's exactly right, that there are a lot more successful, during that period, there were a lot more successful vintages in Rioja than in Bordeaux because there were no successful vintages in Bordeaux.
Yeah, but
basically
maybe
none for 21 years.
maybe is that they were very reluctant to because that is very important also for the image of the wines. Okay, if you abuse the excellence of the vineyards, okay, then you can get in trouble as well. Okay, because they tell you, well, man, you cannot have so many excellent vintages. Okay?
Right.
Something is going on here.
Right.
So that is a problem. We have to be very careful. For example, there have been excellent vintages in Rioja by dictated by the DO that which we have said that they are not excellent, that they are very good. Just this, okay? Because we were seeing some sort of abuse on this. So we try to dictate which are our excellent or very good vintages for ourselves, right? So, yeah.
Is that why you, with our Danza, like our Danza 2010, you declared it a special bottling because it was the first time you'd done that in 73 years.
Yeah, no, not 73 years. I mean, the excellent special selection has been in 64, 73, 2001, and 2010.
Okay, well, still a lot of years.
Yeah, a lot of years. That's correct. That's correct.
A lot of years in between.
But we only do it when we consider that it's extremely special, that wine. Okay. Otherwise, we don't do it. We can no abuse of that because nobody's going to believe us if we do it. Okay. Yeah. The last one we did was 10 years ago, but and the other one was 2001. All right. So we cannot abuse it, and we have to be very sure that what we're doing is right. Okay. Yeah, but it's like that. Okay. You have to be very picky and very. Yeah.
Rafa, you're in Panama.
Is that... a lot. I mean, you have to sacrifice a lot. Yeah, that is the way it is.
Rafa, you're in Panama. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm in Panama right now. Yes, and I've been in the house since March 14.
I meant to ask. I hope you've weathered this difficult time the last year or so without any difficulty.
Well, believe me, many people had it much worse than me. So I'm very happy, and things were okay.
Good.
Everything is fine. Everything is fine. Definitely. Yeah.
Well, I think if you drink enough wine, you're immune to COVID.
Yeah.
I'm signing off. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Parson Delant. Thank you, Parson Delant. Thank you for goading me into having this tasting. I'm not sure
I pressed him enough. I said, I need my Rioja Alta.
My pleasure, anytime. And Viva Donosti.
Viva Donosti.
Viva. Las
Good night. Thank
Namoradas.
you.
Thank you, Rafa.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.